My name's Angelica Malin and I'm editor of About Time magazine. Launched in March, so it's been almost a year. And and then we launched a second site in November, which is called AFT, which is a women's magazine, which is sex, dating, relationships. I mean, I did English at Bristol, so I was a lot of my friends went into journalism, but no, I didn't have any qualifications. Sort of learn on the job a lot. Yeah. I still like to learn shorthand. That's on my list for this year. So the concept behind About Time, and the reason I started it, was that we're so overrun in London with options of things to do. There's like a million new restaurants opening, a million activities that you could do. And yet, ironically, Londoners are like the most time poor people, that we're always rushing, we don't even have a lunch break anymore, and then your weekends are so precious. And what I wanted to do was kind of scale down the amount there was in London and make it really hand-picked and be like, it's about time you did this, like this one thing. And actually not being scared of having an authoritative, bossy tone. As I felt that too many magazines were quite light and fluffy and saying these are a few of your options, but I wanted someone to say, actually, this is what you should be doing. This is what the one thing you need to try. So that was the concept behind it. So it's for a time-poor Londoner that wants to use their time wisely and thinks that time's precious. So our average reader, we're geared more towards women because a lot of our think content is towards a female market. But we know that quite a lot of guys read it. But it's 25 to 35-year-old Londoner. Normally the kind of places we promote are around the West End, a lot of central London, but we do a few things east, but quite a lot centrally in West London. And it's just for London that wants to have fun, really. I think the main thing is that not to look around too much at your competition. It's very easy to get sucked in and suddenly freak out about how many other websites there are that are similar to yours. But the internet's a big space, and actually I think there is room for creativity and there's room for new sites. I think the most important thing that I've learned is really figuring out what's been popular and running with those trends. Very niche specific content that actually brings together communities, so like vegan or gluten-free. Those articles do really well because they're kind of something more than just an article, they're actually really shareable.
You're quite a young editor. Have you found that barrier?
Actually, I've really found it's been in my favour more than anything. Mainly because we deal a huge amount with PR companies and loads of the people that work in PR are very young. So actually being able to speak on a level has been really useful and made it very easy for us. There are certain times that it's been a bit challenging being young, especially with advertisers, and when it comes to negotiating on money, I often find that I feel like we get a worse deal because they think I don't know how to do it. But to be honest, actually, being a girl running a business has been more of a challenge than being young. I think being young and being a woman is quite a difficult combination, but kind of fun at the same time. It's just a challenge.
Obviously, you said about the journalism workshops earlier. That's quite unusual. How would you say, how important is networking to you?
Yeah, huge amount. I mean, especially with the PR that I spoke about, that's a very important part of what we do, because a lot of our stuff is based on news and kind of openings, and there's so much going on in London that unless you have the contacts that are going to tell you about these kind of things, it can be really challenging. With the journalism masterclasses, why we started doing them, it's almost by accident, is before I launched the site, I was like, okay, I want to launch a magazine, but I need more people involved. It's very hard to start something on your own. So I did like an open shout out on Twitter, and I was like, anyone that wants to come and help out, it's called Saturday Editorial Team, so you'll be part of our Saturday team. And you can come to my house, be free lunch, be snacks all day, and you're going to help out working on a magazine. But we found that there isn't a huge amount that's like that, because it almost feels like journalism can be quite a closed door, and that people don't want to help. But actually, we're here to say that it's fantastic that we can inspire people to get into it. And it's not impossible to get into lifestyle journalism. And also freelance, people really worry about whether they're going to make any money being freelance. Is it possible? And it completely is. It's just how you start out. We don't have, in terms of other writers, we don't have like set requirements, but we're a socially sourced magazine, which means that loads of our contributors come from social. So for example, if we were going to do an article that was like best vegan breakfast in London, we might tweet being like, we're looking for someone to do it, and then we'll get people to email us and tell us why they're the right person. So that kind of model actually lends itself really well to people that are already quite clued up on social because they've already come from it. So we never ask people, we never say you have to tweet, but it's like pretty much a given that they will. But in terms of our own social media strategy, we tweet about every half an hour from About Time, which seems like a lot, but actually with publications it's not. And then personally I like to tweet quite a bit as well. But we have social media managers now who look after the accounts. Well, that's the amazing thing about lifestyle, is that actually like you can try and have a structure, but sometimes you can't help it. Like it will be hot outside and everyone wants to read about ice cream. So there's some extent that you can control your editorial calendar, and then there's just things that happen, like, I don't know, like 50 Shades or whatever, and you'll want to change everything. So we generally speaking, we post about 3 or 4 articles a day. Generally speaking, we'll know what 2 of them are, and we'll have a plan, and we'll have them like written out, a timetable kind of thing from the week ahead. But then there's some stuff that we might just write on the day because some interesting news story happens, or something we think will suddenly do really well for some reason. We brainstorm at the beginning of a month. We'll come up with a few ideas for Chinese New Year, for Valentine's Day, what articles we're going to do around it, and then we'll commission it out. But then we might meet a few times a week just to talk more. But it's now like a very big network, so it's kind of harder than that. Like, we have about 175 writers, so in terms of like knowing what's coming in, it's all a bit chaotic sometimes, and I'm still trying to manage this beast. Huge part of About Time is the photographic element of it, because especially with food, like, people want to see what it's going to look like. And yeah, we actually do often run stories based on imagery, so occasionally we'll run recipes just because it looks nice. In terms of photography, we use a lot of, this is where actually going into journalism now, and if I could give any advice to young journalists, it would be to be able to have skills that you can offer to publications. So we use loads of journalists that are great photographers as well, and they'll go out and they'll review a restaurant and take their own photographs, and that just adds such a new like dimension to their portfolio. So we use lots of journalists that can take photos. We use press images quite a lot. Lots of them are great quality, and then occasionally, if we really want to show that we actually went and researched it, so like chili cocktails or avocado on toast, we'll do an Instagram diary of that, because that makes it show that we went to all of them. The mobile side of it is huge. Half our traffic is mobile, so that was one of our prime focuses, especially on AFT, because the nature of the content is people want to read it on their phones to kind of hide it away a bit. So that was very important. The design was basically just something clean and simple where we could display imagery really nicely. And it was quite a long process, quite a lot of back and forth, but we're redesigning now at the moment, and we're redesigning with a huge amount of insight into reader habits, so what people are clicking, where they're trying to look, and so you kind of always have to redesign like every 6 months to fit into how your readers are behaving on the site.
What are your top tips for young journalists?
Having a great portfolio online. I think that often we're sent pictures by people and they attach lots of PDFs, and I don't think that's a very good way of doing it, because I think if I want to find out more about them, I'll go on a link and I'll have a look, but actually bombarding people's inboxes I don't think is a great idea. So if you can get, you can do it quite cheaply, a nice portfolio online where you can do links to your work, a little about you section, and maybe a CV on that. That's really useful and it's quite professional. Using Twitter as creatively as you can, finding the right emails. I think often people email the wrong person at the publication, and that's a big stumbling block. Like, it wouldn't be me that should be emailed if they're trying to pitch. It should be like one of the sub-editors for the section and that kind of thing. So finding the right sub-editor to pitch your ideas to is useful. Going to as many masterclasses as possible, like stuff like us, not plugging our own events or anything. What else is really useful? Also, like I said, having multimedia disciplines. If you can afford to save up and buy a nice camera, teach yourself, or to go on a workshop about how to make video. Video is huge, that's really useful. So kind of multimedia skills beyond print, because there's so many great writers. If you can offer something a bit different. Even people that can illustrate. We've had some amazing writers who are also illustrators. If you've got a skill like that and they can say, we'll do a cocktail article for you and I'll do my own sketches alongside, like stuff like that is amazing. I mean, video is expensive, which is one of the reasons that in the start we didn't do a lot of it. But we're definitely looking into more of it. At the moment, we're redesigning the website with an e-commerce functionality. So from the summer, everything on About Time will be shoppable. We'll have our own shop online, which is going to sell some cool stuff, which we can't. I don't know if I can talk about yet. It's something interesting that I think is happening in the industry is that even though people say print's going out of fashion, just because it's online doesn't mean it isn't physical. And for us, it's all about bringing the online readership into a physical space, whether that's with events or talks or whatever. So for us, a big focus is how to build up the event side of About Time and what kind of events our readers are interested in, whether that's talks or supper clubs or networking. So that's going to be a big focus for us this year.
What type of person does it take to work for About Time magazine?
Quirky. Has to have some kind of like strange, harebrained feature ideas. Quirky, willing to try a lot of things. Like, we're very serious about our feature research. I think someone that's really committed to finding the best out of London and not just like filing a top 5 that's just a few places they need to like go, try it in depth, maybe try it 2 or 3 times. So someone that's willing to go the whole hog for a feature. And just someone that's excited about life, about London.